Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Integrity Matters by Turnitin. My name is Chooks, and I'll be your host for today's vidcast. In the house with me today is Senior Learning and Teaching Specialist, RMIT University, Ishpal Sandhu. Ishpal will be discussing on a topic which is looking at promoting innovation in teaching, learning, and assessment. Ishpal, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, your teaching focus, and any areas of research that you're currently working on?
I'm Ishpal Sandhu. I'm currently the Learning and Teaching Specialist at RMIT University. I started off my career as a technology specialist, which then I moved into teaching, and now I find myself helping others to integrate technology and how to teach in a 21st century sort of fashion.
Okay, so today we're looking at innovating in teaching, learning, and assessments. And with the current climate we're in, my first question is around how's learning and teaching evolved since the pandemic, and how are universities supporting staff and students to succeed?
Yep, thanks. So this is a tricky question. Pre-COVID, we anticipated the coming of this digital age. So we almost had two groups of educators. Some who believed firmly that this digital age was truly here, and some who believed that it was coming. So when pre-COVID, traditional lectures was still a norm. So we could when the pandemic hit, right, teachers were forced to change their mode of delivery at a moment's notice. So teachers were forced to look at innovative ways and of on how they can replicate that same online the same face-to-face learning experience into an online classroom. From what I could see, that universities in the whole education sectors have been absolutely brilliant in supporting not only the teachers but also the students in the sense. So some from the top of my head that I can think of is converting learning materials into the LMS. Um, uh, how academics can or educators can record synchronous and asynchronous videos with captions. So as we move to this digital economy, right, one thing that is really non-negotiable is mobile responsiveness and accessibility. So let me expand on this accessibility component. So there's a whole spectrum that you can do, and not to take away the whole complexity about it. So one example I could give was probably providing students with uh, learning materials in different formats. So I think universities and education sectors have been absolutely brilliant in managing and supporting teachers and students with this transition.
Excellent. So what I'm hearing is you've been very crucial to this move to a more mobile, technology-focused teaching. From your experience, how might institutions encourage a culture of innovation in learning and teaching with a particular focus in assessment, being that students are not working remotely and they need to still do the assessment, especially when assessments have been done in very obvious face-to-face conditions?
Yep. So I believe there's no really one way of doing it, and universities are already doing it as we speak. But one example or one idea I would like to see more of is calling out all the innovative and good teaching practices during the year of COVID, and build a community of practice around these frontline heroes, together with learning and teaching experts, and build a community of practice right among these experts. So we need to get them to form a partnership. We need to allow them to have those discussions. Some might be tough, some might be easy, but again, to encourage, to be able to encourage change. um, we, especially in the form of assessment. So coming to the question, right, so we need to be able to test less for, or not be able, but I think we should test less for knowledge and more on the student's ability to perform a specific task. So the student's competence in completing a authentic assessment. So to me, an assessment should be should allow a student to to show a potential employer that they have the skills and knowledge to be successful in that role.
Hmm. I do like your idea around communities of practice, and I remember a few years ago RMIT started that.
Yep.
So looking at the role of assessment in educating and your conversation around authentic assessments, what role does analytics we pull from student responses to assessment? What role do these analytics play in informing how students learn? How often is this done, if it is actually done in universities?
I think this is done quite often in universities. I'm not an expert in this data field, but I know enough. So, for example, right, so in 2017, 2018, I was part of this project where we wanted to change the way assessments and learning experiences was conducted for our students. So in order to do that, in order to encourage change, we needed to present to educators research backed evidence on why we're doing it and data on how we're doing it, right? So the data that we got was we provided these program teams with the highest level view of their program. So for example, we are looking at their learning outcomes. Are their learning outcomes engaging, less engaging, or not engaging at all? So based on the Solo and Bloom's taxonomy. So we're also looking at the learning experiences they are providing to students. For example, are they online? Are they blended? Are they doing workshops? Are they doing tutorials? Or are they just in a didactic learning environment where information is just given to them and they are mere spectators? So we also looked at assignments. So assignments, are they group assignments? Are they um, individual assignments? So it's a whole spectrum of data that we presented to academics together with the quilt and the course evaluation survey data. So based on this information, we could as a group have those tough discussions and actually inform or change how we teach and learn, how we learn and how we perform our learning and teaching in the university sector, and getting students ready for this life and work.
Excellent. So, knowing that learning analytics would mostly be informed by educational technology, would you say, and how would edtech companies support innovation in learning and teaching in higher education? If you could provide us maybe 3 to 5 ways this can be done, that would be really appreciated.
Yep. So I'm a firm believer that technology must support and drive the pedagogy, and it cannot sit in isolation. So there's this framework, right? So at this highest level, there's this framework called TPAC, where we have the technological knowledge, and we have the pedagogical knowledge, and we have the content knowledge. So how we use technology, we must find that sweet spot between all these three sectors. So I encourage you to explore that framework. So I believe that digital tech must and will digital tech will support and enhance the learning experiences of our students. So for example, right, with in a blended classroom, um, in a blended classroom, we can talk about how digital tech can record the lectures so that classroom time can be used for more meaningful hands-on learning experiences like your project-based learning, your problem-based learning, and student forms those the knowledge of the topic by the process of inquiry. So again, coming back to the teacher being the facilitator, the teacher and the students asking questions in a real life learning environment, and trying to fill those blanks as they scaffold their learning to the next sector. There's also another example I could give. Also, there are also a lot of opportunities with AR and VR, so augmented reality and virtual reality. Otherwise, so we can talk about learning um, where the learning is called simulation based learning, right? So how we create that authentic learning experiences for the students is key in the success of their employability.
Excellent. So we're going to move the dial a little bit and look at the concept of inclusive assessment. And we're tagging on the innovation piece here. Is there any work currently being done, maybe in RMIT University or other universities, to enhance assessment to make them more inclusive?
Yep. So our RMIT takes inclusiveness very seriously. So we in building a culture of inclusion and diversity for staff and students. So, is one of RMIT's core values. One component that I can touch on this whole complex framework, right, is the accessibility action plan. So RMIT's mission is to create transformative learning experiences for our students, getting them ready for life and the world of work. So without oversimplifying this in the enormous amount of work put in required for this framework, one example I can provide is maybe providing alternative assessment arrangements to students, and another one is maybe providing uh, learning materials in all multiple formats.
Excellent. So that means there is, and I want to do a little bit of stretch with that question, knowing that RMIT's focus is more around accessibility. Is there any work in terms of even enhancing assessment to include other learning modalities? I know you touched a little bit on that. So let's assume the accessibility framework is being done. What about students who would rather focus on more visual as opposed to assimilative task? Is there more work done in that area as well?
Yep. So definitely. So in that sense, where we have senior learning designers and myself, we train teachers on how to create that sort of environment. So like you mentioned, there's different sort of learning. So you have your auditory, you have your visual, and so on and so forth. So being able to provide students with that options, I think is really important in ensuring that they actually get the education they paid for.
Excellent. All right. So my final question for this episode is just looking at the role that AI or machine learning would play in innovation when it comes to teaching and learning. So the question is, how do you see AI and machine learning impacting learning and teaching in higher education?
Yep. So artificial intelligence or AI and machine learning um, is some of the terms that are making a huge buzz around the world at the moment, right? So the importance of AI and machine learning has grown at a rapid pace, and I believe it is the next level of the technological revolution, where machine learning meets human knowledge and intelligence. So this is really interesting and complicated at the same time, and I'm not saying that I am an expert, but I believe that uh, machine learning and AI will our lives will be influenced around these elements, particularly in the form of the education sector. So one example I could give is maybe instead of a one size fit all strategy where students are getting the same thing day in day out, maybe we could look at students could use apps and mobile devices and analytics and choose and personalize their own learning journey. That is that to then tailor their own learning journey, and teachers also at the same time can also group these students based on what level they are at in their learning cycle.
So we've come to the end of another episode of Integrity Matters by Turnitin. I'd like to say a big thank you to Ishpal Sandhu, who is the learning and senior learning and teaching specialist at RMIT University, for taking out time to discuss promoting innovation in learning and teaching, particularly in assessments in higher education. Thank you again, Ishpal.
Thanks for having me, Chucks, and thanks for the support. Looking forward to more collaborations in the future.